Hey, it's Andrew, and Pokemon Diamond and Pearl kind of changed my life. Okay, I know that's kind of dramatic of a title, but I'm serious. Games can change people's lives, and Diamond and Pearl definitely did that to me. It wasn't my first Pokemon game. My first game was Fire Red, and while that game was an absolute blast, it didn't have the lasting impact on me that the first Nintendo DS entry of the Pokemon franchise did. Let's set the scene. 2006. In 2006, I was 7, but I didn't actually catch wind of Pokemon Diamond and Pearl, which came out in 2006, until the following year, 07, where I was 8. I was a bit of a mess at 8 years old. A few years before, I'd been in a pretty brutal car wreck in the back seat that kind of knocked my head around like a cue ball in pool. What I and my parents didn't know yet was that I actually suffered a pretty severe brain injury from that event, but that was figured out a few years later, and that's a dramatic, crazy story, but that is a story for another day. But back to 8-year-old me. I was quite honestly obsessed with video games, and my parents are young, doing their thing, and they aren't super fond of me playing video games all the time. I wasn't really allowed to most of the time. But because of a friend at school, or I don't really remember, but I loved video games, and somebody helped hook me up with a secret Nintendo DS that my parents were not aware of at the time. So this little Nintendo DS only ever came out at night under the covers, and due to some bartering and Pokemon card trading, I was able to get my hands on a copy of Pokemon Pearl. So in one random evening of 2007, I was sent to bed. After about an hour, I pulled the covers over my head, booted up my Nintendo DS, and I started Pokemon Pearl. That classic opening to a Pokemon game was still really fresh to me at the time. And while I had some Pokemon cards, and because of Fire Red, I was familiar with a lot of the old Mons, I was really excited to play. But this was the Sinnoh region. It was a new landscape, and there were a lot of new little pocket monsters that were brand new to me at the time. But you know how I had said that my head got kind of rocked around and nobody really knew it yet? Well, it was causing some problems, and I was facing all kinds of developmental issues like ADHD and Tourette's, and my social skills had all but... So I didn't really have any friends. I was a lonely little fella. I also just didn't really do much. My parents weren't really keen on bringing out their offspring of a broken Bluetooth speaker out to some sort of event. So I stayed home, kind of lonely. This is what I did. That night, though, in 2007, Professor Rowan offered me a Pokemon. They were the new starters at the time, Piplup, Chimchar, and Turtwig, and I dove in hook, line, and sinker. For anybody who understands fishing metaphors still. And if I was allowed to know the Wi-Fi password of my house, I wasn't really allowed on the internet. Probably would have looked up the fact that I should have chose Chimchar because there are like no fire types in the Sinnoh region, at least the original. So I just chose Piplup because honestly, Piplup just is the best starter in Sinnoh. And if you disagree with me, you are wrong. Thank you. Goodbye. We are a straight Piplup stan on this channel. Maybe it was because I paid way more attention this time around, or maybe because the new day and night cycle, to me at least, was super interesting because since I only played at night, the game was always at night, but I was just so immersed in this game, it's not even funny. Game Freak definitely went the extra mile when they developed their first DS title. Every single town was distinct with their own landmarks and cultures and tons of content. The routes even had character and so much more content to explore. And I know that for old Pokemon games and anybody who used to play Pokemon games, that isn't very surprising because Pokemon games used to have a lot of character versus the current ones. But this was still so brand new to me, and that was so special. The Sinnoh region felt like a whole world that was just beaming with adventure and places for me to explore. But as a kid, I didn't really know this at the time, so I just grabbed Piplup and I started dashing for Jubilife City, which is the first major area you go to in this game. After battling through some pretty normal grassy routes and doing normal Pokemon things, I finally stepped into Jubilife and my world opened up a little bit. I do want to mention really quick that I was growing up in Alaska. Even though it's Anchorage, Alaska, it's still a pretty small town. And on occasion, we might hop down to Seattle to see family and stuff, but as far as my own experience expanding the world and cities and people, I wasn't super receptive to those small little trips down to my grandmother's house. I honestly recall this being my first city experience, and I know that's really weird, but Jubilife City was a city. There were people everywhere, the energy was bustling, people were busy, there's a radio station over there, there's entertainment TV shows over there, and the police are chasing after bad guys. And before before I go any further, I do want to say the composers of these games being Junichi Masuda and Go Ichinos and Hitomi Sato popped the pop rocks off with this one. They were cooking some absolute bopperoni pizzas with this one, and they were deep dish and delicious. The music in these games stands out so well because not only do they let you bob your head to it on occasion, but they also teach you audibly about every location you enter in the game. Jubilife felt sophisticated and busy and exciting, like there was so much going on. Floroma Town makes you feel like you gotta sit down, have some apple pie, and socialize with your grandmother. That is before you've gotta kick the terrorists out of town. But still, Hearthome City makes you wanna shop, man. I'm ready to spend all of my Poké Dollars and go absolutely broke. And as a foundational experience I was having as a kid, I am now currently broke. And while the soundtrack isn't always as exciting as some of the other games, I still think it is a standout as one of the best in the series because it really provides the experience and culture of the places you're visiting. In Jubilife though, you've got some story elements to start introducing themselves to you as you go. And I'll be honest, Pokemon Diamond and Pearl don't have peak Pokemon stories, but there are some serious highlights. Moving through the game, I ran over to Orberg City to find the first gym battle, and I think this is when the game went from fun to me to truly incredible. Twin Leaf Town is your hometown in this game, and it's quiet, small, and comfy. You go through that to Sandgem Town, which is more of the same. Then you end up in a big city, which so quickly transitions to literal coal mines and a town that holds so much cultural significance because of the mines within it. The shifting of settings and attention to detail and the music in both the big city and a small mining town were incredible, and they blew my tiny mind, and I was instantly so deeply exploring a brand new town. And I think that this is when the sense of adventure snuck up on me. This game changed my life, right? There's a handful of things that I experienced in this game that really affected me, and I can confidently say did change my outlook on life. And I still think about these games and this adventure all the time, which is why I was absolutely heartbroken when they remade Diamond and Pearl and they were absolutely terrible. The first one of these things that changed me though is adventure. I felt like I was setting out on an adventure. I was going new places and walking up to absolutely everybody that I could press A on to learn about their town and their culture and their own life experiences. Exploring every nook and cranny and being rewarded with awesome discoveries. This adventure was beginning to make me truly believe that there is something interesting worth seeing around every single corner. And when I started believing in the adventure, this game became much more immersive and personal. The first battle in a gym was an absolute battle for me. With Piplup, I triumphed, I felt great, and my favorite little penguin turned into a more little favorited, angrier penguin called Primplup, and honestly, we love Primplup in this house. Escapism! Let's talk about escapism for a little bit. I feel like most of you are probably watching, except for my dad actually, hi dad, but the rest of you are probably watching this because in 2007, 2008, you decided to play Pokemon Diamond and Pearl while your parents dealt with an economic collapse. The Pokemon games, and games in general, offer an incredible amount of escapism. And sometimes life is hard and you really need that. At that time of my life, I was lonely and hurting and really confused, and all I really knew was that at night I was having an adventure, and the amount of joy and happiness that that generated is truly unmatched. They say you can buy happiness, and I'm not really sure about that yet. I haven't been able to test it for myself, but I can confidently say that you can trade Pokemon cards for it. I remember a period of time when I was playing this game every night, and all day I would just daydream about the adventure I'd get to go on after I was sent to bed that night. I could actually go live a life and express myself and experience things, and it was awesome. The escapism offered by Pokemon Pearl at that time was exactly what I needed in my life. And I'm not gonna go into parasocial relationships, that's a topic for another video. But the characters in these games were becoming my friends. Whenever Dawn showed up, I knew that we were either going to stop a terrorist attack or I was gonna learn something valuable. And whenever Jun showed up, I would listen to his goofy little statements and then absolutely return his Pokemon team to the Shadow Realm. Rowan would offer wise advice. Cyrus was honestly compelling at times. He, in all honesty, kind of sold my little 8-year-old self on ending the world and creating it in your own vision. The point of all of this is to say that I was there. I was a Pokemon trainer, and me and all my little dudes were taking on the world. And I don't need to do a whole play-by-play through the entire plot of the game. Let's be honest, if you're watching this, you probably already played it. Except for my dad, I know that he definitely did not play Pokemon Diamond and Pearl. And if you do need something something to do. I know that you travel a lot and flights are long. You could totally go play Pokemon Diamond and Pearl, but that adventure kept giving me the same feelings. It was wonder, excitement, passion, curiosity. I remember so clearly the intense journey up through Route 217, through the blizzards. I really couldn't see much, and honestly, the white, snowy screen was kind of burning out my eyeballs under that blanket. My Staravia evolved into a Staraptor on that route, and once I finally made it through those blizzards, I remember being absolutely struck by the music of Snowpoint City. It was eerie and tranquil until switching to something that sounded a little bit more welcoming and good indication of how slow and calm life up here in the snow was. The town was still and frozen. The ruins were striking and kind of daunting, and the people were kind, welcoming, and warm. I don't know if anybody else can relate to this, but in a couple of different Pokemon games at a young age, there are some towns you get to where when you enter the Pokemon Center, it feels so comfortable and safe and welcoming, and it feels absolutely amazing. Snowpoint City was one of those towns. It then got pretty intense though, because I went and fought Candace, the gym leader, and honestly, I remember really wanting Candace to be my friend. I liked her a lot, and honestly, I was 8, so that was perfectly okay. Moments like my experience in Snowpoint City though are peppered all over this game. I didn't travel through the snow or fight God at the Spear Pillars or find mystical Pokemon in the centers of all the Great Lakes, but I felt like I did. I felt like I had seen the world and experienced so much, made friends, fought battles, and overcome weaknesses. I was so fulfilled, and I was 8. Now, hindsight is 2020. There's rose-tinted glasses, however you want to put it, and I'm not really going to be one to do a psych eval on myself 16 years ago, but at 25, I still feel that 8-year-old's adventure. I fully feel like those experiences pushed me to want more and explore more and experience more. I was still a pretty big mess, and I was still a little kid, but all of a sudden, I really wanted to go on adventure. I wanted to face hardships and battles and push through them and explore and experience the world. And in all honesty, I kinda did. I won't go super deep into it, but about 12 years later, I did go on a gap year and I traveled the world. The pseudo monster truck rally I did with my brain at that stop sign when I was a little kid ended up leading to some legal mumbo jumbo that meant I had a little bit of a nest egg and an annuity sitting in a bank account somewhere. And when I was 20 years old, I appealed to a judge and I was able to pull that annuity out and put it towards a program that brought me around the world and let me experience all kinds of things. I lived in Japan. I did service learning and built stuff and did some farming in Peru. Went all over Europe and Australia and New Zealand, and then went back to Japan because I honestly love Japan and I kind of want to live there again. They put something in the coffee there, I swear. It's kind of amazing. But being on this journey at age 20, I remember facing issues that kind of kicked the crap out of me. New places, new experiences, new people, all kinds of hardships related to all of that kind of stuff. And predominantly homesickness. After you're gone for 8 months, it can get really exhausting and you kind of want everything to be back like it was when you grew up. I remember thinking about Diamond and Pearl though. I remember thinking about the journey I went on as a little kid and the battles and the friendships and the lessons and the experiences that taught me to be curious and push and explore, and making sure that I never gave up and that I was always curious and brave. Diamond and Pearl helped me experience and learn all of that, so I was ready to do it so many years down the line later. Besides the lessons and the growth that were so core to me, I really do love that Diamond and Pearl came out at the time that they did because I loved escaping into them, and I'm so happy I got the opportunity to do that. I wasn't doing really good back then, and the fact that Game Freak created the world that allowed me to step into it and become the person I wanted to be and go on the adventure that I wanted to go on is so special to me. It was pure joy. And as a kid around then, I think I needed some of that. So thank you so much to Junichi Masuda, who directed this project and all of the rest of Game Freak to create Diamond and Pearl. Those games changed my life. And thank you for watching. Super different video from me today, but honestly, I like to talk about stuff and I wanted to talk about these games. Like and sub if you want to support the channel, and if you do, I love you. And if you want to become a member of the channel to help support it financially, please feel free to join. Discord and Twitch links are in the description of this video, as well as other social links if you care about that. Thank you to D Sanchez for being the single member of this channel. And hey, thank you so much for watching. Peace.